Hello, happy quilters. Welcome back to the Kilted Quilter. So, you want to make a quilt. Well, just in order to start, there's a few things you're going to need. And, a lot of them aren't necessities, but they are helpful, if you want to say that. I mean, you're obviously going to need scissors, and you are going to need pins. What I'm going to show you today is what I use. But first and foremost, you are going to need a sewing machine. Now, when it comes to sewing a machine, you can get pretty much anything you really can get your hands on. Don't worry too much about brand or price. Basically, anything that'll sew a straight line is all you're going to need. Don't worry about fancy stitches, whether it's computerized, whether it's not. No need. A straight, simple line is all you need when you're quilting. So as far as notions and implements you're going to need, I say the first and foremost thing you're going to need is a rotary cutter. I use a 45mm blade, and has saved me so much time when it comes to cutting my fabric. And it has saved my wrists so much. Alongside that, you're going to need a good pair of scissors. I can't stress enough how important it is to have a good pair of sharp scissors. Never drop them, and never use them to cut your paper. Big no-no. You're also going to need some sort of a marking implement. Now, I use this simple chalk pencil. Chalk washes out, and on black, it is the most easy thing to see. Not that I sew with a lot of black, but when you do, and you want to see your line, I still say go with chalk. It washes out no problem. Now this little guy right here, I'm not sure if you can see it. A seam ripper. The countless times I have sat and picked out my stitches. You have no idea how many times I've had to sit and use this for 2 to 3 hours a night. You know what? My great-grandmother always used to say, the more you stitch, the more you rip. It's inevitable. It's going to happen. I'm not going to say I'm perfect at sewing. There's days where I make so many mistakes, I just throw it away for the day, sit down and watch TV. Come back to it another day. Next thing you're going to need is a ruler or a straight edge. I use a variety of sizes, different shapes. This is the one that's most handy right now. This is my 60-degree triangle. You don't really need to have the fancy tools like the ruler. They just help. And with a rotary cutter, it just sits right here along the side, and you go. When it comes down to it, it helps. Now, I also use pins. This is a simple flower head pin. When it comes to pinning certain patterns, you stick it in the fabric, and it lays flat. And that's important when you're trying to piece things together. You don't want your foot or your needle to run over your pin and break it, because I tell you, I've broken pins. Now there's different types of pins. I showed you the flathead pin. There's also the pearl head pin. Different pins for different projects. Another thing that I find important is a cutting mat. You can use a 36 by 24. I have 2 of them on my cutting table. Honestly, that is the best thing that I've ever used, because I can lay my ruler and my rotary cutter down flat, and it makes a lot of sense to have when you cut your fabric, you want a simple, straight, accurate line. Now, for your beginners, it's not going to be easy to get a straight, accurate cut right away. Don't worry about it. If you're just practicing, cut different shapes, different sizes. And the best thing that I've ever heard was an hour stitching today means you're an hour better tomorrow. It doesn't matter. You were not going to be perfect. And, I mean, when it comes down to it, the only one who's going to see your mistakes is you. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Don't be afraid to rip out your stitches. It's okay. You know, I did a quilt the other day. I was ripping my binding off. I was not a happy camper because I pride myself on simple, straight lines. Well, my line looked like I was drunk while I was sewing. It went this way and it went that way. I wasn't having it. I just sat there, turned on a movie, and picked my stitches. Frog stitching is not fun, but it's a necessity. And when it comes down to, like I said before, machines, as long as you can sew a simple straight line, you'll be fine. I'm fortunate enough to have a computerized machine. Some of you on a budget may not have that luxury. That's okay. I'll say it. If I've said it once, I'll say it again. It's not a big deal. And as we go along in this series, it's okay to get frustrated, walk away from it. You're not going to be... Some of you may not be as fast at sewing as I am. And that's okay. I was not the greatest sewer when I started either. But when it comes down to it, we all got to practice. And another thing that I find helps is a tape measure. When it comes down to sewing and finding out how much you need for a backing or batting, this little guy right here is going to be your best friend. It helps you not to get stressed out. And if you don't know how to read a tape measure, that's fine. I'll show you. So I'm not sure if you can see it here. There we go. So this is your 1 inch mark. And this is your other inch mark. In the middle, that's your 1/2 inch. And then halfway between that and the other side is a 1/4 inch. And then these little guys right here, those are your 1/8 marks. Most times when you're sewing, you're going to be sewing a 1/4 inch seam allowance. I do suggest this because it is one of the easiest things to save yourself. I use a 1/4 inch foot on my machine. As you can see here, there's this little ridge. That is a 1/4 inch from your needle. I just line my fabric up beside it, and away I go. I still manage to sometimes get a little wonky, but when it comes down to it, at the end of the day, as long as it's within an eighth of an inch, it's not a big deal. That's going to be my phrase. It's not a big deal. So, I really hope that I will in the description put all the tools that I use for cutting mats, rotary cutters, pencils, chalk, pins, you name it. Everything that I've said here. And if there's something I didn't say, which I just remembered, you'll need an iron. A good steam iron. You want to make sure that your seams are crisp and straight. When you stitch a seam or a thread, you'll definitely want to have it pressed. It relaxes the stitches and it creates that crisp, clean line that we all want. So, that'll be enough for this video today. I don't really want to make it too long, but you'll definitely want to check out the description below. I will put all the tools and pins that I use, everything, and check out the description, and bear with me as I learn how to teach on YouTube. Our next video will be up in a couple of days. Happy quilting!